This is Launching Your Daughter podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Now, here is today's episode. Episode 10. Welcome. My guest today is Rebecca Wong, licensed clinical social worker. Rebecca is a relationship therapist and professional consultant in private practice in New York's Hudson Valley, where she lives with her husband, 2 children, and a few four-legged mischief makers. She is the creator of Connectfulness, a relationship practice that she uses to help her clients and colleagues understand, manage, and value their own humanity as a tool to connect to themselves and all the important people in their lives. She believes that our relationships are reflections of who we really are, and every interaction is an opportunity for evolution. Every day, she embraces life as a beautiful, messy, serendipitous adventure. Now, here is today's episode. So welcome, everybody. Today, I have my guest is Rebecca Wong. She is a relationship therapist and creator of Connectfulness. She resides in the New York Hudson Valley with her husband and 2 daughters, and I'm so excited to have you on today, Rebecca.
Oh, thank you for having me, Nicole.
I know today we've talked a little bit about the work that you do, and so much of it is related to parenting and the couples work, and I would love if you could tell our audience a little more about what it is that you do and why you do what you do.
Oh, gosh, yeah. So I find that my own humanity has really inspired me to explore and create this research-based practice that I call Connectfulness. And what it really is just a way of slowing down and connecting to the things that really matter. So often that's the relationship we have with ourselves, with our partner, and with our children. I work with a lot of parenting couples because I really intimately understand how messy and complex modern life can be, and how that mess triggers a lifetime of stuff. I've sifted through a lot of my own narratives, a lot of my own pain. I've discovered a lot of my own little personal aha moments, and I've worked with countless couples working through that process for them too.
Oh, awesome. I love it. And I know you have written, I believe, a few blogs or have done a series, if I'm recalling this correctly, about how it is important for that connectedness, and that we can, in relationship, we can forget kind of ourselves. But yet for parents, it's like they can also get caught up in their kids and forget who they are or forget how to feed their relationship. And you go back and incorporate, play and incorporate that connectedness. And I love how you do that.
Yeah, I call play the glue. I say, play is relationship glue. It's the stuff that keeps us invested. It's the stuff that keeps us in it. And it's the stuff that makes it all feel a tiny bit better.
Yes, definitely.
And I also say that often one of the secrets or the not so secrets about really happy relationships is that they take a lot of practice.
Yeah.
Because so much of it's about being able to see your own patterns, how you treat yourself, how you treat other people. And that being able to see the patterns is what also helps you create the changes that you need in those patterns so that everybody can feel safe, seen, heard, and understood.
Oh, I love it. As that humanness, what you were talking earlier, is we so want to feel seen and heard, and slowing things down and reflecting back on, what am I doing and how am I doing this and how's it affecting me? How's it affecting others that I'm in relationship with, and being able to gain that awareness and then make those changes to create deeper levels of connection.
Yeah. And so when we can make that process of seeing yourself, when we can make that process a little more fun, it's easier to stay in it. And when we can make it less threatening to be seen by somebody else, then that also is something we can stay in more. So that's where I bring the play in. Play doesn't always mean that we're like, it's this conventional meaning. It doesn't have a particular definition. It's more of how we embody it. And so I talk a lot about what play is and how we embody play in my work.
Can you give us an example, like what does that look like when you talk about what play is and how to embody that? Could you give us an example of that?
Yeah. Well, so if you think about a time where you just felt really like in the moment, where you were following like your own path and things just felt really good. Maybe you lost track of time. Maybe you were doing something with someone else. I know when my husband and I first met, we used to play a lot together. We would go rock climbing, we would go on snowboarding trips. I never had a sense of time back then,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
My life is very dictated right now and very scheduled, but I used to like live in this state of just getting lost in the moment. That is something that I'm still looking for. And I may still find that. I just find it now in smaller moments.
Yeah.
Um, but when I'm not feeling safe, when the mess in my life gets too big, and I'm saying this about me, but I'm really meaning this about all of us.
Hmm.
When the mess in our lives get too big, we need to slow down and find that play more because we're so out of balance that we don't feel safe
Hmm.
to just be vulnerable, to be present, to be real and be human.
Yeah.
And that's when our mood starts to darken, when we get depressed, when we get irritable, when we have more trouble connecting with the people that we love or just being compassionate towards ourselves.
Hmm.
And that's where we lose. So play helps us. It's this catch 22. It's this really funny like chicken and the egg scenario
Hmm.
because when you're not feeling safe, you stop playing, but what you need in those moments is more play.
Right. It's the whole counterintuitive piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but the play is actually going to help you feel more secure. Now, this is all like in the context of a pretty safe relationship. If you're not having safe relationships, if there's like a lot of really unsafe stuff happening,
Hmm.
like we're talking violence and really unsafe stuff, play is not necessarily the answer.
Right.
Play might be the thing you need to do to connect back to yourself to say, I need something different. But it's not necessarily the thing you want to do in an unsafe relationship.
Yes. Thank you for putting that out there too, because it's really important that if there is abuse going on, physical and or verbal or sexual abuse, that, yeah, you need to get yourself safe
Yeah.
first. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
sometimes, you need to soften, even in those situations, you need to soften inward.
Hmm.
You need to soften towards yourself
Hmm.
so that you can give yourself permission to get yourself safe.
Yeah.
And that inner softening, that may be a little bit of where the play exists.
Yeah. And I like to, you talked about it previously, when your husband and you first met, there was a lot more play. And now that there's children involved, yeah, your life is a lot more structured and dictated to. Yet you can still have those moments of play. And I think for most adults, right, we can forget that it's like, it's not about play all the time because life does change, things change,
Right.
but it's finding those moments. It's being in that moment of joy, of flow, because you're losing track of time. And it's like, that's it. All those little moments add up. And yeah, it's important to have that and remind ourselves it's like, yeah, it's not like this all the time. There are some moments where we're in that.
Yeah, and I think we can all do a better job searching for more of those moments.
Yeah.
Being in like a what part there's like 8 different archetypes of how to play. And one of them is being a collector. One might be being an explorer. One might be being a storyteller. There's all these different kinds. But if we're thinking about play as like the discovery of these connecting moments,
Yeah.
right? Like everything becomes a scavenger hunt or an exploration or a rock to turn over or another place to look for how can we connect to one another? What can we do in this moment? We might be doing the dishes, but maybe we could have some fun while we're doing them or do them together or stop for a minute and put on some music and dance with each other or just find a way to connect in that moment.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. It's not about having to do, it's like, oh, here's the chores again. We got to do this. So it's like, liven it up a little bit. Look outside the
Yeah.
box and create those little moments of play and
Because if you're not, they're not going to find you.
correct. Correct. And that goes back to some of the previous podcasts that I've had. We talk quite a bit about mindfulness, and that is part of it, right? That play is
So much.
being in the moment, being present, and being mindful of where you are and what you're also bringing out into the world. So that play is like, hey, this is the only moment I have, and how can I add a little more fun to it?
Yeah, it's funny because I recently posted a blog post about play being relationship glue, and one of the sections in that post where I really talk about mindfulness
Oh,
because that is so much of a template for
hmm,
how play can work in relationships. It's the same
yeah.
framework. When you're thinking about what mindfulness or meditation is, there's always a place where your mind is going to wander away. And the work of meditation or mindfulness is to notice that and come back. You're going to
Yes.
wander, you're going to notice it, you're going to come back. And so, if you think about that just as a framework in relationships, you're going to also have the same thing happening. Your relationship, you're going to wander away from each other, you're going to notice it. And if you use play, you have what you need to come back.
That beautiful reminder too, because in relationship, with all relationships, whether it's a spouse, it's a child, it's a friend, family member, whatever, you're going to have moments where you may feel a little more disconnected, and it's being very intentional about coming back to reconnect.
Yeah.
And yeah, drawing that awareness of, oh, here's where I am, being more mindful in this and present in this. And it's, yeah, you can reconnect that, but you're going to have sometimes seasons where you feel closer and other times you don't. But there's ways and yeah, options to be able to do that reconnecting piece.
And those are necessary,
Yeah.
right? Like when you just think about like sitting down for even 3 minutes of a mindfulness exercise, it might be hard to sustain being totally present and totally with your breath that whole time. You're gonna wander. You need to wander because if you don't get the opportunity to flex the muscle and remember
Yeah.
to come back. And relationships are the same way. We need disconnection because without disconnection, we lose passion, we lose desire. Those disconnection moments are what remind us why we're in it.
Yeah. That just reminded me, I don't remember who has talked about this, but it's like when we are able to disconnect and just reconnect with ourselves, that's also the time that we can be more creative.
Yeah.
It's like when we go inward and we allow ourselves or give ourselves permission to be where we are, yeah, different things can bubble up. And it's like, oh, okay, this is how I could feed that relationship more. Or here's what I need to do to help this. Or wow, here's what makes me feel rejuvenated. And I want to share that with my partner or family or my kiddos or love it.
Yeah.
So
It's good stuff.
it is. And I also know you have another part of your practice, which I just interviewed Charlotte Easley regarding equine assisted psychotherapy. And she works really with women and how to help the moms kind of work through the process of letting go of their daughters, as they're launching into college years or young adulthood. And you do the equine assisted psychotherapy as well with couples.
I do.
Can you talk a little more about that or what that process looks like?
Yeah, so we do an event, we call it Horseplay. I work with a local equine assisted group up this way, and I show up as the couples therapist. So much of that work is just about observation, where the horse becomes this wonderful, intuitive, large being who brings up a lot of stuff just by fully being present. And the couples that are working with the horse, they are just kind of like their regular patterns are showing up, right?
Yeah.
Who's the leader? Who's the follower? Who is more discerning? Who's a little bit more bossy? Like all of these little pieces of their
Yeah.
relationship are like totally present there. And even without words, they're present. You can just watch it with how the couple and the horse is present with each other. And it's a really beautiful way for the couple to even take a step back and be able to observe themselves without it being about the last fight they had.
Yes, and I love that work. I used to do it myself as well, and I find it so powerful because it's the experiential piece of it. It's live, it's in the moment, and as you said, those patterns can show up really quickly because the horses, whether it's a single horse or it's a herd of horses, really can mirror back what is currently going on with the humans because it's not about the words, it's about that body language and what is being brought into the arena, and it can be very eye-opening, for couples to go, huh. So that's what that looks like.
Yeah, it's really interesting too. Just like the conversations I watch the horses have with the humans.
Uh-huh.
My co-facilitator, she often says that every time a horse approaches a person, they're immediately asking a question, and our job is to figure out what the question is that they're asking.
Yeah.
And so it's so interesting to kind of watch these little scenarios unfold because depending on the energy that we bring into the situation, there's always a different question being asked. We do that to each other all the time too. We're always picking up each other's body language and each other's stuff. The horses are like really adept and really intuitive and able to do it. They live in that space. We forget that we live in that space, but
Yeah.
we're there too.
And it goes back to, as you're saying, the horses come up to the humans and there's a question. And for us humans, we're trying to figure out what that is. And that human level, right? The human connection. It's when our partner is approaching us or our child is approaching us and they may be having a hard day and they're trying to connect, but they may not know how to say it. And it's trying to figure that out and like, okay, observe what that body language is, do some reflection on that. We have the ability to have the dialogue and the actual communication piece of it, but it's being open to exploring that. Yeah.
Yes.
And I love it. Yeah, the horses can definitely bring it to a different level of regaining that intuition and regaining that awareness of how to do that. Ugh.
Yeah, they're a beautiful combination of being this big, overpowering, really connected, intuitive being, right? Like
Yeah.
it's this duality of their presence somehow intimidates us, but they also see deeply into us. And so there's this being able to stand in your own truth in their
Yeah.
presence, there's something really, really healing about just being around them.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Absolutely. I love that. I'm very biased when it comes to the animal assisted
Yeah.
stuff. So love that work.
Yeah. I'm also in the process of doing some animal assisted training with my dog. She's still a puppy, but we're working on bringing her more and more into the office. And I find that when I do have her here, just like the horses, she tells me so much about the couples that we work with together.
Yeah.
Just by where she puts herself in the room and who she sits near, who she doesn't, and
Hmm.
all these different pieces of her body language, she becomes a mirror also.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
then, as you said, like what you do in the equine piece of it, it's that observation and being able to reflect that back to the couples of saying, I notice, where my dog is sitting, what do you think
Yeah.
is going on? Or, she's sitting in between the two of you. What do you think that's about? Or
Right.
way off in the corner all of a sudden. What do you think that's about?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
once had this one couple where physical touch was really difficult for the two of them, one partner in particular.
Hmm.
And she sought that partner right out and was like, "You're going to touch me this whole time that you're here."
Yep. Yeah.
So it was, yeah.
Really getting the person that it's okay to have the physical touch and it's, I'm safe and so are you and lovely.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it was a
lovely.
beautiful interplay.
And it is amazing that the human animal connection that we have, how it really can help humans get in that present moment, help them feel more calm and safe. Because as we know, with whether it's the dogs or it's the horses, it's this unconditional love that goes back and forth. And there's not judgment, right? They don't judge you. They're just in the moment with you.
Yeah.
And if they're feeling safe because you're feeling safe, then it's like, wow, here it is, this lovely connection that's going on.
And yet, when we're talking about other people in our lives, whether it's our kids or our partners or our own parents or someone else, we're always in another dialogue.
Uh-huh.
We're never just here in the moment with what's happening between the two of us. We're thinking about the 5 other times something kind of similar might have happened and the way that we remember you acting and what we think you're going to do, even though you haven't actually done it this particular time.
Yep. Yep. So very much in the headspace and
Yeah.
not, in your body and going, okay, what is really going on and how can I share that with the person and, be in this moment with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm also curious, with all the work that you do with the parents and the couples, is there a book or are there things that you recommend to them, like maybe even in between the sessions, in between whether it's after the workshop of working with the horses or in between the parenting couple sessions, anything that you recommend to them to continue that opening of the dialogue, working on practicing of being more mindful and reconnecting?
Yeah, I think there's a few different books that I recommend.
Okay.
There's three in particular that are coming to mind right now, but they're all kind of different depending on who I'm talking to and where they're at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm working with a couple that has small children,
Mm-hmm.
there's two particular books I might recommend. One of them is Playful Parenting by Larry Cohen, and the other one is Daniel Siegel's Parenting from the Inside Out.
Oh, yes.
They take different approaches, but I think in some ways those two books kind of hit the same nerves where One of them, the Parenting from the Inside Out, is a lot about getting in touch with your own narratives and your own stories.
Hmm.
And Playful Parenting is really about using yourself in relationship with your child. And in some ways, it's a combination of the two of them that we're really seeking. You have to be in touch with your own story so that you can use yourself in the
Yes.
moment. And then the other book that I recommend, or that I just love, I should say, is it's called Play, and it's by Dr. Stuart Brown.
Uh-huh.
And it's this wonderful book just about what play is and how it really reshapes our brain and kind of creates new neural connections throughout our being and in our lives.
That's beautiful. You're the
Yeah.
second person who has actually recommended it. I know Kirsten Goffney, when I talked to her about animal assisted and play therapy,
Yep.
she also recommended that book. And I'm like, okay, got to get that on my list.
Yeah. It's a really fun book. It's what I love about it is he talks a lot about like different play archetypes, different ways that we play. And it's pretty eye-opening just to see how we all really do fit into at least one of those different archetypes or categories. Even if the way that you always played was like doing math, or something like that. Like you might not think of it as play, but it really is. It's your space.
Yeah. Well, and it's going back to you knowing you. And when we
Yeah.
can go back and go, oh, that makes sense. And yeah, that really does. It rejuvenates me. That makes me feel alive. That makes me feel more connected. The more we understand ourselves, the more we can truly understand why we do what we do in our relationships. And if there's something we want to change, we can.
Right. If we don't understand ourselves, that's like a big wall in any relationship because there's no way we all want to be seen, heard, and understood.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can't see, hear, and understand ourselves, how can who we are resonate for somebody else? And when we see that reflection back, it makes sense. It's never going to make sense if we don't get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, lovely, lovely stuff. I love it. Rebecca, you've got this 21-day series for couples. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how people can sign up for that?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, connectfulness.com, to sign up. There's at the top of every page right now, there's a little sign up here button. And what it is it's a collaborative series that I've put together with a meditation teacher and a financial planner.
Ah,
And
lovely.
yeah, so for 21 days, it's just an email series. You get a new email in your inbox every day for 21 days. And we just walk you through a process of connecting to yourself, connecting to your relationships, and how the money story plays into all that. There's so many stories that play in. The money story is one of them because one thing that we've come to see is that there's basically three resources that a lot of us feel really depleted in. It gets in the way of our relationships, and that's time, money, and energy. And so that's why the three of us have come together to kind of talk about how you can get more of this stuff just by slowing down and looking within.
Oh, I love that because I
Yeah.
do a lot of education with my parents regarding setting up expectations around money with their kids, with their daughters, and how to help them manage that. So I love that that's incorporated into this series for them to understand, I guess, how their belief system, how that impacts them, how they talk about it, don't talk about it. Family of origin stuff can come up with that too.
So much. And so
Yeah.
often, one of the issues that couples have is that they're on just such different pages. They
Yes.
haven't even had these conversations because these are really hard conversations to
Yes.
have. So we kind of guide the process. We're not giving financial advice,
Right.
right?
Right.
But we're saying, like, here's a lot of things just to take a look at. Sit down with your journal and sit with this question. And just sit with this for a while. Maybe your partner can sit with it too, and the two of you can then have a conversation about it.
Oh, beautiful. Again, it's all about slowing it down,
Mhm.
how they can reconnect in a different way, a more heartfelt way,
Yeah.
and not make these type of topics so taboo. And again, yeah, it's not necessarily about, yeah, here we need to do X, Y, and Z with our finances, but it's just opening up the dialogue about just money in and of itself and talking about it. That's great.
Yeah, it's a really big deal. I find so many couples come in here struggling about money. And money isn't really the issue. The issue is that they're having all these blocks in the communication.
Yeah.
But part of the blocks are the different stories we have, the different narratives we bring to the table in relationship. And we're giving our kids their own narrative. They're
Hmm.
getting a narrative sometimes it's based off of the conflict we have with our partners,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's
Right.
what they're going to bring with them into future relationships. So the more work we do kind of sorting this stuff out and figuring out as a couple what's what, and these might be the values I grew up with, and these might be the values you grew up with. What do we want to impart to our kids together?
Yeah. And
Right?
yeah, and being
Yeah.
able to, when you have the dialogue, being able to say, we can change it, we can shift it. What makes it work for our family, our partnership?
Right.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the key, is getting to that place where you don't always have to agree with each other,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to sit down and long enough and be able to tolerate the conversation so that you can at least hear each other, right?
Yes.
Like, I get that you're saying this and this is important to you. That doesn't resonate for me, but I can hear why it's important for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? It
Yes.
takes out the fight.
That and what you just talked about is what I know we do this with our clients, is that's active listening. It's being able to reflect that back. It doesn't mean I need to do anything different or change what I'm doing, but to be able to hear you and say, I understand it,
Yeah.
and still be okay with, it's okay to agree to disagree, to love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love how the 21 day series is really goes back to what you started at the beginning of our conversation about slowing things down, incorporating a little more play that helps people be more connected in their relationship and being more mindful about it. That all of this helps bring that to the forefront so that parents we're all imperfect and we're
Yeah.
doing truly the best job that we can totally do. And being able to share that with the teens in their life and say that we're doing their best and we're going to connect in a different way that is more loving, more playful, and accepting of not only them but of ourselves.
Yeah, it's gentler, it's
Yeah.
kinder. It's what we all need more of in this really broken world.
Yes.
There is so much out there that just doesn't feel right. There's so much hate infused
Hmm.
everything in the world, and what we need more of is the kindness. And that
Yeah.
kindness has to start inside of ourselves, and it has to start with our families, because if it
Yes.
doesn't start there, it can't ripple out.
Right.
It's going to get caught. If we're being nasty inside of ourselves and judging ourselves, we're going to do that to the rest of the world too.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful reminder that I know what I tell clients, the more that you love yourself, the more that you're able to love others. And then sometimes the thought is, but that means I'm selfish. It's like, no, no, no.
Hmm.
It's all about the self-compassion, that the more you know you, the more you embrace yourself and that you love you for all your imperfections. You are much more capable of feeling the love out from coming outside in towards you and being able to really share that with more and more people. And like you said, it has an incredible ripple effect.
Incredible. It's also how we show up. One of our colleagues wrote a beautiful contribution post on my blog about the art of self-compassion. And she's an art therapist, and she talks very much about her own process. It's a really wonderful read. But one of the things that really strikes me about that particular post and just this conversation in general is so much about slowing down and tuning in,
Mm-hmm.
and then being able to kind of tune ourselves up so that we can really show up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because we can't show up if we're feeling depleted. It's
Right.
kind of like that old airplane on the air mask on the airplane thing,
Yes.
right? You can only take care of somebody else if you have the resources you need to kind
Right.
of keep functioning. And when we're running on empty, we can't be there for anybody else.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
and I love that you provide this service both at an office setting and in the arena for parents to get more connected, to be more present, and then to be able to role model that to their teen girls or their teenagers or even their younger
Yeah.
kiddos in their family. That there is help and there are ways to help rebalance that.
I think it's so important, especially with our teenagers, because if we're not modeling those really healthy, connected relationships, what kind of relationships are they exploring?
Yeah. And I know I've talked about it in other episodes that so many of us adults, we agree that the technology today, it's getting more and more where constantly on it and they get mixed messages and they're trying to be perfect. And for girls especially, there's still such a push for them to look a certain way, behave a certain way. And it's like, oh, no, 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 no. And they can get caught in that cycle. So yeah, when they get it role modeled at home about how to connect one with yourself and then one with each other in a more loving, self-compassionate way, that can help reset what they're learning from the media piece of it.
Yes. And it also helps to rebalance things a little bit. Have you heard of Kim John Payne's work? He wrote Simplicity Parenting.
Ooh, no, I have not.
I just went to a recent talk by him. The talk was entitled Loving Limits in the Digital Age. But he basically talked about the discontentment that when we feel enough of it, we start to make changes. And the changes we make bring us back into connection. And the 4 points of connection he talked about, which are so powerful, are connection to nature, connection to friends, connection to family, and connection to self.
Lovely.
Right? And so much of the time, what we're seeing these days, especially in this new digital world, is that everything gets flipped upside down. And that the peer influences, which if we think about things like a pyramid, the peer influences are supposed to be towards the top of that pyramid. That pyramid gets turned upside down in this digital age. And family, which is supposed to be at the bottom of the pyramid, gets put on this topsy-turvy upside down. It's still on the bottom, but now it's only the point.
Yes. Yep.
Right? And so we want to get that pyramid right again. And we want to make sure that the family is really that bottom secure place where they can kind of sink back into when the world feels confusing.
Oh, that's lovely. Yep. Definitely have to get that information out there as well. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I would love if you could tell us one more time, how can people find you? How can they get a hold of you? That sort of thing.
Yeah. The easiest way to find me is at connectfulness.com. That's CONNECTFULNESS.com.
Excellent. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for being on the podcast today and for giving all my parents out there some helpful insight of how they can get reconnected, to play, have some fun, and become more mindful to help them truly launch their daughters as well.
Oh, thank you for having me, Nicole.
If you like this episode, I invite you to subscribe on iTunes to receive the weekly updates. This podcast is also available on Stitcher and Google Play. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Launching Your Daughter with Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist. For more information or to stay up to date, go to launchingyourdaughter.com. You can sign up for my email list or join my Facebook group. Thank you.